breaking. Here's the fun story about Nick. This is what happens when your GeoDC presenters have some spare time on their hands. They just go searching GitHub or the Twitters or their friend networks and say, hey, who's doing something really cool and interesting? So hat trick to Max for going on GitHub and saying, hey, what's new in the world of Mapbox? So that's how we found out what Nick is doing, and we're super excited to have him here today to share the latest updates and what he's up to. So thank you.
How's it going, folks? I don't think I need a mic. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So I'm Nick. I work at Mapbox. Was one of the first people working on our search engine, and also one of the co-founders of Open Addresses. So I've been doing address work for quite a while. One of the challenges we face at Mapbox is kind of managing all the address data and conflating it into a single source. In the past, what we've done is we had an open source project where we basically AWSified the OSM infrastructure, and we ran a self-hosted version of the Ruby project on our AWS account. We quickly started to run into problems around the OSM data model. Although the node-way relation data model, for those of you who are familiar with OSM, is super flexible. It makes it very, very difficult to work with from a kind of automated fashion. So it works great for individual edits, not so great for machines trying to work with it. So what I'm going to present tonight is a little bit of work that I've been doing over the past year. It's called Hecate. Some people call it Hecate, whatever you want to pronounce it. And it's kind of a cross somewhere in between the OSM, the Ruby server, and kind of an Esri map server. So here's the UI you can see. One of the things we store for the search team is building polygons sourced from municipalities. So we can see here that we have vector tile display with the building polygons. We have deltas across time. So this is one of the things that's really hard to find in any kind of off-the-shelf geospatial server is that time component. We also have built-in styles. I don't have anything pulled up here. Let me just load my demo. So here it's written in Rust. So for those of you who are kind of getting into the new languages, oh, that's the wrong one. 1 second. There we go. Okay, so right here, just loading up just kind of an empty Hecate instance to demo. So this right here is a box that I just spun up and loaded. So everything about Hecate, the whole design behind it is this line delimited GeoJSON. So line delimited GeoJSON in, line delimited GeoJSON out. Any folks that have used Tippy-Canoe for vector tile generation will be very familiar with working with it. Super flexible in that it's not constrained to a single geometry type. One of the frustrations that we've had is having to specify geometry. So for example, with QGIS, you can only open a point layer or a line layer or a polygon layer at any given time. We need to be super flexible as our search engine has every geometry type you can imagine loaded into it and all residing next to each other. So I live in Seneca Rocks, West Virginia, so I have some sample data loaded up there. It'll show up. It always works at your desk. Oh, and it is not going to work right now. Wi-Fi. Anyways, what you should be seeing is, oh, that's embarrassing. You should be seeing some road geometries, as well as like the building polygons and the points. I don't actually use the wonderful in PostGIS MBT generation. It's actually a Rust implementation, but they're dynamically loaded from the database. A couple things we support. For those of you who've edited JOSM before, we fully support the OSM data model. So Hecate can natively read out to the OSM format. So I just loaded the data that you were supposed to see in the vector tiles into JOSM. One thing we're about 70% done is we also support the WFS spec. So right here we can see the same data loaded via WFS. So another cool thing, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show a couple of things because for some reason it's the server is.
We'll blame Starbucks.
Yeah, let's blame Starbucks. So Starbucks Wi-Fi. Let's do that. Built-in Mapbox style support, so you can take any style that you've created in Studio, or I'm not super familiar with the open source version of Studio. and drop the style spec in here and view the style. We also have read-only query support for the underlying data. Something we use a lot for. Okay, interesting. You can create bounds, so you can quickly download like geospatially bounded areas. So, for example, in our processing pipeline, when we take address points and convert them into interpolation lines, we do that on a state-by-state basis. But in Hecate, we have all of North America loaded. So we can quickly pull out individual chunks, do processing work on, and then re-put it back into the server. And then it's not going to work right now because it's not like my internet. We can also store kind of metadata, change the background kind of in this lower right-hand corner, which it's not loading the images. We have like different Mapbox base maps that you can kind of swap between. But I invite everyone to take a look at it. It's in the Mapbox organization called Hecate, and the big kind of thing is like arbitrary geometry types and streaming GeoJSON in, streaming GeoJSON out, with full feature history and multi-user support.
All right.
Awesome.